In my library, I have over 15,000 books. I love books on preaching especially. Two preeminent 19th century preachers whose sermons are in my library are Charles Spurgeon and Joseph Parker. What's incredible is that both men had powerful churches in London at the same time. City Temple and Metropolitan Tabernacle were contemporaries and both doing amazing things in London. Parker's sermons from Preaching Through the Bible and Spurgeon's Metropolitan Tabernacle sermon with 63 volumes sits on my bookshelf. Though their books sit side by side, the men in person seem to have some issues with each other. Joseph Parker published an open letter in the newspaper to express his concerns for his friend and colleague, Charles Spurgeon. The letter read this: "Let me advise you to widen the circle of which you are the center. You are surrounded by offerers of incense. They flatter your weakness, they laugh at your jokes, they feed you with compliments, but my dear Spurgeon, you are too big a man for this." Man, he said this publicly and put it in writing in the London newspaper. Welcome to the 260 journey and to the very small letter, 2 John, that has a huge message for Joseph Parker in the 19th century and for us in the 21st century. In John's small 13-verse letter, he ends it with these practical words that I think we all need to hear. Listen to verse 12. "Though I have many things to write to you, I do not want to do so with paper and ink, but I want to come and speak to you face to face so that your joy may be made full." The letter of 2 John, many believe, was written to the same people that 1st and 3rd John are written to. What is interesting is that when he starts off the letter to the chosen lady and her children, some thinks he's writing to the church and not a mom and kids. It was a metaphor for the bride of Christ. Regardless, the apostle wanted to say a number of things to these Christians. The apostle knew there was a lot to say, but he also knew that everything wasn't said the same way to those people. John gives us this amazing practical advice. He said some things can be paper and ink, and some things can be face to face. This is so good. And John delineates for us that all information is not disseminated the same way. I'd like to put it in my 2 cents to tell you what I think is face to face and what I think ink and paper is. Let me tell you a story that happened to me at a funeral. I saw it with my own eyes. While I was attending the funeral of a loved one out of respect, a family member showed me something I couldn't believe. They pulled from their pocket a 40-year-old letter that was written to the deceased. It was a letter from a pastor that shared some concerns and some bad news with them. They were so angry with the letter and the pastor's insight on a situation that they folded it up and carried around for 4 decades. I saw the letter. I saw the fold marks that were about to come apart from being open and shut so many times over the years to show people the audacity of the preacher's writing, which, by the way, the preacher's words were true, but that is not the point. The point is someone is carrying around a letter that infuriated them for 40 years, and now it's in the hands of a family member that I pray doesn't do the same. Though the preacher's words were true, they didn't belong on paper. Some things on paper and ink and some things are done face to face. Here's the rule. Anything that is corrective or negative, I believe, should be done face to face. Anything that is positive and encouraging can be done with paper and ink. Why? Posterity and longevity. Paper can be saved, even for 40 years. I want people to hold on to a positive and encouraging text message or a letter of uplifting words. I want them to be able to look at it again and again that can bring joy and hope in tough times. And I've done that before. When something is hard and corrective, it should be done face to face. People need to hear your tone, see your facial expressions, notice your tears, and be able to ask follow-up questions. Face to face for hard conversations, paper and ink for good conversations, because I want them to have it for a really long time. I wish Joseph Parker would have gone face to face with Spurgeon, not paper and ink. His concerns for a friend should have been done privately to help him. If he had something great to say about Spurgeon, then you put it in the London newspaper. In Matthew 18:15, Jesus tells us, if your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault. Just between the two of you, the Bible says. If they listen to you, you've won them over. The goal is not to win an argument, but to win back a friend. Let's be clear. This was not just a 19th century problem for Spurgeon and Parker, but we have an issue with social media. It may not be literally paper and ink, but posting is the same. I would urge you to keep the same 2 John rule. If it's negative or combative, don't post it. If it's encouraging and positive, post it. You may ask, but what if I'm concerned about their point of view or stand on something? then show them the love by going to them, not writing about them. I heard one of my pastor friends say it like this: if you're bolder on Facebook than you are in person, you're a fraud. That's convicting. John's first century advice on face-to-face or paper and ink should have been heeded in the 19th century with 2 London pastors, and most definitely needs to be heeded in the 21st century with a social media frenzy. Thanks, John, for this amazing insight for us. Point taken, and I'm going to follow through. I want you to notice I put that in ink. Thanks for joining the 260 Journey.